WWE legends have spoken about why they hated Randy Orton, and honestly, some of their reasons actually make sense. So let's not waste time. Let's jump into the stories, the drama, and everything behind all that hate. 1. John Cena. John Cena and Randy Orton's rivalry is one of the most famous in WWE history, and it's easy to see why so much tension built between them. Their feud wasn't just about storylines on TV, it spilled into backstage heat and personal frustration. It all started in the mid-2000s when Orton was establishing himself as the Legend Killer, and Cena was the rising face of the company. From the very beginning, their clashes felt bigger than just matches. It was a battle of egos, styles, and personalities. What made Cena frustrated with Orton wasn't just his talent in the ring, it was his attitude outside of it. Reports from that era suggest Cena often felt that Orton could be unpredictable, both in matches and behind the scenes. Some wrestlers described Orton as someone who wouldn't always follow the agreed-upon plans, which could put high-stakes matches like WWE Championship bouts at risk. Imagine preparing for months for a WrestleMania main event, only to worry about whether your opponent is going to hit the spots you rehearsed. For Cena, who prides himself on professionalism and discipline, that kind of unpredictability was maddening. The feud itself was brutal, intense, and relentless. They faced each other in countless pay-per-view main events, including classic bouts at SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and multiple WrestleManias. Their matches were often storytelling masterpieces, Cena embodying the never-give-up hero, Orton as the calculating, cold-blooded villain. But the magic in the ring didn't erase the tension outside of it. Cena reportedly found Orton's arrogance and occasional lack of respect for the locker room culture irritating. Orton was talented, sure, but sometimes that talent came with an attitude that rubbed veterans and peers the wrong way. Over the years, the rivalry evolved. It shifted from simple hero versus villain storytelling to more complex dynamics, with Cena and Orton representing different eras of the company. Orton's willingness to bend rules and blur lines in both eras sometimes clashed with Cena's more methodical approach. 2. Triple H. Their tension traces back to Orton being kicked out of Evolution, the dominant faction led by Triple H alongside Ric Flair, Batista, and later other rising stars. Orton's removal wasn't just a plot point, it was a reflection of real backstage resentment. Triple H, who prided himself on loyalty and discipline, reportedly took Orton's attitude personally. Orton was young, brash, and ambitious, and his actions, whether intentional or not, were seen as disrespectful to the veterans who had built the company and the stable's legacy. The feud reached its peak in 2009 when Orton went after Triple H in the most ruthless way imaginable. He targeted his family. In the story, Orton's attacks on Stephanie McMahon and Shane McMahon made the rivalry feel vicious and deeply personal, crossing the line from a standard championship feud to something that hit Triple H on an emotional level. Every promo, every angle, every match became a story about trust, broken and revenge earned. It wasn't just Orton trying to win a title. It was him challenging Triple H on every front, questioning his authority, and proving he could strike at the core of what Triple H valued most. Behind the scenes, the heat mirrored the storyline. Triple H reportedly grew frustrated with Orton's unpredictable behavior, his willingness to bend rules, and his sometimes careless approach to high-profile matches. In a faction like Evolution, where respect and cohesion were paramount, Orton's tendency to operate on his own terms could create tension. Triple H valued discipline, timing, and precision, qualities that made Orton's occasional unpredictability both infuriating and stressful. Their matches were brutal, filled with storytelling and psychology. Orton's cold, calculating style clashed with Triple H's methodical, cerebral approach, creating matches that fans loved, but that likely fueled Triple H's frustration. The animosity wasn't just physical, it was mental. Orton had a way of getting under his opponent's skin, both in the ring and through promos, that made him a truly formidable nemesis. 3. The Undertaker. Their feud started with Orton relentlessly pursuing The Undertaker, cutting promos filled with arrogance and confidence, claiming he could end the streak that had become sacred to the WWE Universe. For a man like The Undertaker, who had spent decades building a mystique of inevitability and respect, Orton's cocky, brash attitude was infuriating. Every appearance, every verbal jab, and every sneak attack was a reminder that Orton didn't just want to beat him, he wanted to humiliate him and tarnish his legacy. That kind of disrespect doesn't sit well with someone like The Undertaker, whose entire career was built on respect, loyalty to the ring, and the aura of inevitability he cultivated at WrestleMania. The matches themselves were intense, high-profile affairs, including main events on SmackDown and major pay-per-views. Orton's style, fast, calculated, and sometimes ruthless, clashed with The Undertaker's deliberate, methodical, in-ring psychology. While The Undertaker was the master of pacing, storytelling, and drawing out tension, Orton brought a level of unpredictability that could frustrate even the most experienced wrestlers. In addition, Orton's willingness to bend rules and take liberties in matches often created extra work for The Undertaker, forcing him to adjust on the fly to protect both the story and himself. Off-screen, their feud reportedly created tension as well. The Undertaker respected Orton's talent. He could not deny that Orton was skilled, but he reportedly didn't appreciate Orton's arrogance and the way he sometimes flaunted authority in the ring. For a wrestler who valued discipline, legacy, and professionalism, Orton's brash, cocky persona and willingness to push boundaries could easily feel disrespectful. By the end of 2005, their feud had cemented Orton as a top-tier star, but it also left The Undertaker wary and frustrated. Orton's relentless pursuit, disrespectful promos, and daring attempts to topple a legend made him more than just an opponent. It made him someone The Undertaker had a real reason to dislike. 4. Edge. Their rivalry started early in Orton's career, with battles over the Intercontinental Championship. Orton was the young, cocky legend killer, looking to make a name for himself by taking down established stars, and Edge was carving out his own reputation as a crafty, opportunistic wrestler. From the start, there was tension. Edge respected skill, timing, and ring psychology, and Orton's unpredictability and arrogance often clashed with that. He wasn't the kind of opponent who just played along. Orton had a way of bending the rules, breaking plans, and getting under Edge's skin. Things took a surprising turn in 2006 when the two teamed up to form Rated RKO. On paper, it was a perfect partnership. Edge's cunning combined with Orton's cold, calculated aggression. Together, they wreaked havoc, dominated the tag division, and had memorable moments as a team. But even in alliance, tension lingered. Edge knew Orton's unpredictability could be a liability at any moment. Orton's willingness to operate on his own terms made Edge constantly second-guess whether he could fully trust his partner. That uneasy alliance made every interaction a test of patience, strategy, and, honestly, tolerance. Fast forward to 2020, and their feud reached its most personal and emotionally charged chapter. This wasn't just about championships or storylines. It was about settling scores, with both men drawing on decades of history. Their matches were praised for storytelling, psychology, and intensity. But behind the scenes, the tension was real. Edge hated how Orton always seemed to think he was untouchable, acting like the rules didn't apply to him. Every match reminded Edge of all the times Orton had gotten the upper hand, not just through skill, but through arrogance, opportunism, or just sheer unpredictability. Edge's hatred of Orton is layered. It comes from years of feuds, uneasy alliances, personal grudges, and professional frustration. Orton is undeniably talented, and even Edge would acknowledge that. But the combination of arrogance, bending rules, and putting himself first left a mark. For Edge, Orton isn't just a rival in the ring. He's someone who challenged him at every turn, sometimes in ways that were infuriating and deeply personal. 5-year Mick Foley. Their rivalry in 2004 was a defining moment for Orton's early career and a memorable chapter in Foley's legendary tenure, and it's easy to see why the animosity felt so real. Orton was the young, brash up-and-comer, the kind of guy who knew he was talented and wasn't shy about showing it, and Foley had to navigate that cockiness while still protecting himself in the ring. The feud peaked with a brutal hardcore match at Backlash, and in true Cactus Jack fashion, the level of violence was off the charts. There were chairs, tables, and all sorts of chaos, exactly the kind of match Foley made a name doing. But for Orton, it was a chance to prove he could hang with the extreme guys and survive the chaos. From Foley's perspective, this wasn't just a storyline, it was a test. Orton was young, but he had the potential to be reckless. And in a hardcore environment, even a small misstep could cause serious injury. Foley reportedly didn't fully trust Orton at first because of that combination of youth, confidence, and willingness to bend the rules. What made the feud even more tense was Orton's heel persona. He wasn't just out there to wrestle. He wanted to dominate, humiliate, and assert himself as a top-tier threat. That intensity clashed with Foley's approach, which, while equally aggressive, was grounded in a respect for the art of hardcore wrestling. Foley valued timing, coordination, and psychology even in extreme matches, and Orton's cocky, sometimes impulsive style could throw off that balance. Behind the scenes, Foley reportedly found Orton's arrogance irritating. Orton was talented, no doubt, but he also had a confidence that came across as disrespectful to the veterans who had paved the way. By the end of the feud, Orton emerged as a major heel and a legitimate star capable of surviving intense physical punishment. Foley, for his part, had done what he always did: pushed the envelope, elevated the story, and set the stage for Orton to shine. But that didn't mean he liked doing it. The frustration, distrust, and tension during the build and the hardcore chaos of Backlash made the hatred feel justified. Orton's combination of skill, arrogance, and unpredictability created a perfect storm that tested even a hardcore legend like Cactus Jack. 6. Christian. Their battles over the World Heavyweight Championship weren't just about titles. They were about ego, respect, and proving who was the better performer. Christian, a talented and crafty wrestler in his own right, had been in WWE for years, honing his craft and understanding the nuances of storytelling in matches. Orton, by then a seasoned main eventer, had a style that could be brilliant but also at times frustrating for those who had to work closely with him. The feud itself featured a string of excellent matches that fans still talk about today. Their in-ring storytelling was top-notch. Christian's resilience and underdog mentality against Orton's cold, calculating aggression made every match feel personal. But Christian reportedly disliked Orton's attitude during this period. Orton was confident, some would say cocky, and he often operated on instinct rather than fully adhering to the planned spots. For Christian, who valued precision, psychology, and timing, Orton's approach could be infuriating. Every time they stepped into the ring, Christian had to account not just for Orton's skill, but for his unpredictability, making the already high-pressure environment of a world title feud even more stressful. Off-screen, the tension was fueled by Orton's reputation for arrogance and sometimes dismissive behavior toward colleagues. Christian, who prided himself on professionalism and teamwork, reportedly found this attitude grating. Orton was a veteran who could carry a match and elevate anyone in the ring, but his tendency to dominate the spotlight, push boundaries, or test the limits of others' patience made him a complicated opponent to work with. Christian respected Orton's talent, but that respect came with a side of frustration. He had to constantly be on edge, ensuring the matches stayed safe, exciting, and coherent. Despite the behind-the-scenes tension, their feud produced some of Orton's best in-ring work. Christian's hatred, or at least his irritation, came from the mix of professionalism and ego clash, where the line between admiration and resentment was blurred. Orton could make you look incredible, but only if you were willing to tolerate his style, his arrogance, and his unpredictability. For Christian, that combination of brilliance and irritation made their rivalry intense, personal, and unforgettable, both on-screen and off. That's a wrap for today. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.